Welcome back, guys. This is another tutorial on vector illustrations. Today we're going to be continuing with working with illustrations in design and stuff, and we're going to be using vectors to make this. It's a photo manipulation, and what we're going to do, we're going to turn it into a vector illustration here. Just a copy or a duplicate, whatever you call that. Scale this one up a little bit. We'll be using this as our reference. So let's create a new layer here, and we can name this maybe the vector work, right? So I'm going to zoom in. That's Z on your keyboard. You zoom in real quick, and now we're going to, what essentially I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be working with in layers, right? For example, this I'm going to be treating as one layer. You see this part here, right? This image, the orange is one layer, then this fruit here is another layer, then this is another layer, another layer, another, and then here we're going to also be having these splashes, the small splashes on their own layer, and we shall hopefully have one other layer here and another layer. So we may have about 4 layers of liquid and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers of the fruit. Okay, so we begin with this upper one here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the rectangular tool here, and I'm going to bring out my rectangular tool. Now, in most cases, the rectangular tool is the one that normally works best for these kind of things, but you can always, I'll be exploring other methods. So again, and they're also I'm going to be giving you various techniques along the way with working with this kind of illustrations I'm going to be doing. So let's get our eyedropper tool here, and we just pick a base color. So we want our orange maybe to be that color. All right, now I'm going to be converting it to, like, I'm going to create outlines. So you go to object, sorry, I'm going to create a gradient mesh for this. So you go to object, create gradient mesh. When you create a gradient mesh, you can specify whether you want, so for me, I'm starting out with 2 rows and 3 columns. I suggest that you start out with a value that is low, so that you don't get too much confused on the work. So here, once you click Alt and click on that eye icon right there, it will change into outline view. Also, another command is Command Y. It gives you the same result, but with this, you're taking away everything. All right, so Command Y just applies the outline view to all the documents, to all the work that is within the document. So, but for you, if you want to just do it quickly to only one single layer, you use Alt and click, and then you may find that now we're going to rotate it a little bit. I prefer doing it this way, just to align it with, just slightly make it roughly the same as the image that we're going to be working with. So we're going to be working too much with the mesh tool, the direct selection tool, and other tools. But now what we want, for example, let's first put this position, these nodes in place. So once you can click all these together at the same time by just with the direct selection tool, you drag over this all together and it will select them all, and now click and bring them up like that, just like this. Now we're going to be pulling up these handles just like this. All right, so again here, what essentially this is, it's just nothing but you trying to come up with the model the shape accordingly, right? So if you understand the procedure here, you can always maybe skip into the next parts of the video or something, right? So you don't have to like wait for this, right? So again, here you can zoom in. Now when you're zooming in, all right, you can when if you want to zoom in very quickly and you don't want to press Z on your keyboard all the time, you can just click Alt and spacebar and you can zoom in like that, and then you go back to what you're doing. So Alt and spacebar brings up the zoom tool very quickly. So yeah, that was the first tip. More tips to come in as we continue. So here we are now just aligning these spaces just so that they are like they're coming to on the like they're following the surface of the orange. Now when you bring this mesh tool, for example, you realize that when you click here, it's going to form these vertical lines. All right, let's first undo that, and when you click here, it's going to form the what? The horizontal lines. So with this knowledge, we're going to be working kind of like working with this knowledge to come up with these shapes. So what do I mean? What I mean is when you click any point after this point, okay, if you click any point after this point using the mesh tool, which you can bring up by clicking U on the keyboard, right? If you click any point on this line, on the vertical line, it will form a horizontal line. So that's what I'm saying. So here, what we want to do, we're going to kind of extend this point in there, and then we use this handle, and then we just follow along like this, so that we want to bring up a horizontal line, and at the same time the same line should be vertical here, kind of vertical but horizontal at the same time. So that's why I'm pulling this over to this side, and I'm doing that. And now once I bring up U on my keyboard, I can click like this, and now it has added this line. So with this line having been added, I can now click and then bring up its width like this, and then you bring U on your keyboard. When you click U on your keyboard, it brings up the mesh tool. So with the mesh tool, you can click and drag these lines, but if you want to constrain the proportions of that line, click Shift, and now you can only move that one line, right? So that's the other tip. So if you want, you're going to, if you haven't understood, we're going to be doing many of them, don't worry. So just kind of try to align that. So let's say you want to move this line, only the horizontal line, then you click, it's going to kind of move this line as well. You make sure you're using the mesh tool, okay? This mesh tool here, U on your keyboard. So once you click Shift, it will restrain it like that. So now you can move this line in position where you want it to be. So let's put it like around there. Let's just do it like that. So this is why you want to begin with fewer points, because in the beginning, when you're kind of positioning these anchor points and everything in place, you want to have as less work to do in terms of modeling the forms of the shape that you're trying to work with. That's why I suggest you begin with about 2 rows maybe and 3 columns maximum, and you can always add and also remove points at any time. So don't make your work too hard in the beginning. So here we now have these points like that. I'm going to bring this down here. We now know that we are going to be working with a gradient, but we want that gradient to be for example, here we want to have a transition between this yellow and this white, but now we cannot have only one line to represent that, so we're going to add another line right there. So if I click, I'm going to click here and I'm going to add, using U on my keyboard, I'm just going to click there and it's going to add for me another mesh line, right? So I'm going to click this mesh line with my A on the keyboard. I'm going to click that line and bring it over like very close to there, because this line is going to mark a transition between the yellow shaded areas and the white areas. And then here I'm going to again move these points down like that. Now I'm going to try and separate them like this, just a little bit. Again, U on my keyboard. U on your keyboard brings up your mesh tool, so you can easily do this without having to shift all the time, move around and get the look for the icon. So here again I'm going to bring up a tool, and yeah, so I like that. So now I want to specify this other region here. Okay, so the way to do that is, again, you come over here with your mesh tool, and again you're going to click before this point here to add another mesh line. Now you can bring it over like right there and also position this in place. So don't worry about the details that you cannot see. For example, the details behind there, you don't worry too much about those, because we are going to be layering these layers. That's why we are working in layers. So you don't have to worry, because those regions will be covered by what you're seeing here. Okay. Now, after adding the horizontal lines, we can add some more horizontal lines down here. For example, down here we can add just one line there. So just add the lines to the areas where you see a difference in the coloring. That will help to kind of sell the idea of what you are trying to do. So the more lines you have, the more work you'll have, but the more realistic your work will turn out to be. So again, for me, when I'm normally doing this kind of work, whether I'm doing it for myself or for someone, I kind of just put in some kind of audio, maybe like a podcast or something, and I listen to that as I'm working, so that I don't get so bored or start dozing off, because this process can be tedious, or in some cases when you don't feel like doing it. But all in all, if you don't like it, so you don't even have to try. So anyway, here we're going to be bringing this one down a bit. So I may end up speeding up for this part for the down, maybe other areas I may end up not showing you all the details, because I'm trying to explain every concept that I'll be using, just so that I don't end up spending 3 hours showing you how to do this. So again, the vertical lines, we're going to be, can fill in the vertical lines. the vertical lines you're going to be adding in again based on areas that we perceive to be changing in color values. So for example, here we see there is a darker tone there going to the ends, and then here we can also put another tone. Now if you're working with various, like if you're working with, let's say, tones that are when they're less detailed like this, okay, you make sure that you go back in those areas and kind of put those mesh lines in place. So in most cases you may want to go back here, for example, right? You see those mesh lines that are crooked. You just bring your zoom key here and then just click once there and just bring them in. You bring in the mesh handles just like that, because what happens if you don't do this, you may get weird stuff like that you don't understand. These lines are going to be showing you how colors are going to be blending with each other. So it's very important that you take your time and you kind of make sure that the blends are going to be working well with each other. I'm not going to do anything with those upper lines because we're not going to be seeing them anyway. So this is what we have now. The next part is the easiest part, and that's just to put in the colors for each of these nodes. Each of these points, we are going to assign a color to them. And the fastest way, you make sure you select that tool, you select the direct selection tool, and then select the eyedropper tool, so that when you click Alt on your keyboard, it brings up the direct selection tool, and then when you release Alt, it brings up the eyedropper tool. So this will help you to kind of make very quick adjustments as you move through. Okay, so the zoom tool is both Alt and spacebar, and then Alt click and then release. So all I'm doing is just going back in here and just using those techniques that I've shown you, and I'm just adding in those details. So again, this can get tedious. Now you can see these colors. I'm sampling this color because they're actually behind the juice layer. That's why I'm sampling a color that I'm sampling this whitish color. Now around here, that's why you want to kind of transition into the oranges and of the fruit, because if you don't do that, then you'll be left with funny results. Control 0 brings us back down to where we were, and once we go out, we move out of that view. Now you can see, let me turn this off a little bit and then turn this on, so you can see that this is the first part of the orange that we've made. Once you zoom in here, you realize that it's very smooth, whereas this orange here is kind of, it has rough edges and bumps and everything. But here, since you're working in now you see that terrible part there. If you want, you can go back in there and try to change it, right? So it's because I sampled instead of sampling a color, I sampled the mesh line, but now I think it's okay. Okay, so those very small subtle different problems are the ones you have to address first. Next part, we're going to duplicate this layer. Okay, copy, paste in front. That's Control C, Control F on your keyboard. Okay, it's very important if you don't know the shortcuts, you learn them as well. So here we now want to go, and we're going to be working with this layer here. Okay, now on this layer, what you're going to do is we're going to go over to, we're going to just basically add noise, because the thing is, okay, let's go to texture and then grain. We're going to just add like some sort of grain to it, because when you're working with oranges, for example, they have rough edges, right? But in Illustrator, there is no easy way you can duplicate or do that. So here we're going to just quickly move to see. This one looks like carbon whatever. This is not working for us. Okay, that doesn't really work very well. Neither does that. Many of them won't, but what we are looking for are the edges which are rough edges which we can work with. For example, okay, this won't work, but you may find that maybe when you decrease, well, it doesn't really work as well. Okay, so you abandon that and then move on to the next. Okay, so for example, this one could work, right? So if for example you scale it up like that, the texture will become much more vivid. If you scale it down, it will be very subtle. So you want to find a balance between. So I'm going to leave it at around this area and then click OK, and it will apply my texture on there. So if I click both of them, it may be hard for you to see now, but there is a texture added. But now the problem is I want to add the texture only to the bottom layer, and I can't add it here. I don't want to add it on the layer that is this part that you eat. All right, so when you're working with these mesh tools and stuff, you cannot go and add Pathfinder or whatever using this shape builder tool. They won't work. So the workaround for that, you have to go here and select these areas that you don't want. For example, these areas here. Let's turn off those layers again. So we're going to select the areas that we don't want to be textured, right? And you're going to put the opacity to 0. The quickest way, instead of going and selecting each tool, is just using the lasso tool. That's Q on your keyboard. So you go over that with the lasso tool and then just move your lasso tool and draw around like this. Okay, so I'm going to first draw here like this, and now you will see that all those points have been selected. Now I still need to select all these ones, but I haven't done that. So what I'm going to do again, I'm going to click Shift on my lasso tool, and then I continued selecting around all those areas, those points. The good thing with the lasso tool, you don't even have to complete. You can just do that and it will select, it will kind of read what you want to do, and it will do it for you. So again, with your Shift, just go over all the points that you kind of don't want to be textured, and after that you just put them to 0, the opacity to 0. So now you will have this area and you will have this area. Okay, so I mean bringing back this area, this part which is not textured versus this part which is textured. Then there you will have your textured material, or first part of your mango, orange, sorry. But don't worry, we're going to be putting this on a back layer. Actually, let's do that first. So we're going to group these ones, Ctrl G on your keyboard, and name that into orange. So we're going to be we're going to lock this one, and we're going to quickly work on the juice layers. Now the juice layers, again, you're going to do the same thing. So with working with the juice layers, we're going to separate them into different layers again, because we want to capture as much detail from them as possible. So what we're going to do is, here we have this layer here. Okay, so we're going to work with this one layer, and then another layer, and then another layer, and then this splashed layer as well. So get our rectangular tool, and then we draw out an area which can be equivalent to the size, and then give it a base color of the juice that we're going to be working with, and then go over and add the gradient mesh tool again. By default, mine, I've set it to 2 rows by 3 columns. Click OK, and then go into the outline view, and then rotate it around to be in the same kind of like viewing, whatever. This does nothing really. It just helps it just makes your work kind of easier, I may say. So we're going to position these layers. Okay, so again, I'm just going to do the same thing. Here it's actually just modeling the parts, that's all. You're not really doing anything much, like, yeah. What you have to do is you have to look at it as instead of trying to conceptualize like what am I looking at, just look at it as a huge shape. Forget about it being juice or anything, and look at it as a very big shape with form. All right, so, and then you try modeling those forms, and then once you're done, you have essentially modeled out the areas that you want. So you don't overthink the process. Let me begin by adding vertical lines first, because vertical lines in this case will help me build out the forms much faster. So then here, once you're done with this, now we want to begin positioning. We're going to just kind of place this. Let's, for example, do this here, right? And then bring this. So here we want to kind of pull these areas here. Make sure the mesh lines don't overlap with each other, because the problem with what happens is, if you have so many lines together, they're going to overlap with each other. I think I may try. Let me try this. If it doesn't work, then we will make another layer for this line as well. But if it does work, then that will be awesome. Alright, so here I've done the horizontal parts, as you can see. We are now going to work on this area right here. We're now going to add the horizontal lines, and we're going to use those horizontal lines as areas to mark these other lines again. So bring up U on your keyboard and just put in some values right there like that. So there I have my image. Now the next part is to assign colors for all those points. Bring your zoom tool. The easiest way to do is to follow line by line, because there you can know what you've worked on and what you haven't. Resist the urge to cut corners and you'll be fine. So we begin with this point here. So it's this and that, and then we get to work. So here I'm going to speed up this process so that you don't have to sit here and watch me do this stuff. After a very long time, we are done here. So let's see the result that we have. These are all the points that we laid out, and when we try, let's switch off this first and let's see how it came out. So this is how it is now. So you realize that, okay, now this has kind of come out the way I wanted it to be. And so you see that when you take your time and render out as many points as you can. So here I didn't render out as many because again I need to make the video not so long. So but you get the idea. The idea is to help you understand how these points are going to be laid out. So the next part we're going to work on is those layers here. So here again, as you may see, that's the layer that we just worked on, and this is the layer that we first worked on right here. So again, so this one, for example, when you put it up, you'll see how layer arrangements are done. So this is now below, so everything is fine. So similarly, you can do this part as well. Now here what I'm going to do is I'm going to work upon one of these, and then I duplicate them for all these other. So let's lock this layer here, and now what we can do is we can just bring our normally people will use the circular tool, the rectangular tool, but I can also use the circular tool as well, although most people find it much easier to use the rectangular tool. So that's why you'll find that in most cases people don't normally use the circular tool. Okay, but all in all, we can get away with this. So we can just, it's all about blending those shapes to come up with the desired results. So here I need a line there, I need a line there and there, down here, up there, here and there. Okay, so all we shall have to do is we shall decrease the size like that, and now we can just give these values very quickly again. So here we've now made another layer there, that point there. Now what you can do, we can now duplicate that. Just Alt on your keyboard, when it brings up those double arrows, those ones, just drag it like that and just deform it a bit. let's select all these dots and lines. Group them and we call them splash. Here we can decrease this. When we turn on this layer, now you see that you have splashes of various kinds. Same, so here essentially it's the same thing that I'm going to do for all these other layers. Now I don't know whether you want to see me doing this, but I suggest that you get you kind of follow the same procedure. Do this for this layer as well and these layers all, so that it gives you the real result that you want. I'm going to leave the tutorial here because everything that you've now seen is exact. I'm going to repeat exactly the same thing, so there is no point in me showing you exactly what I'm doing, but maybe if you want to see, I don't know, but still it's exactly the same thing. All right, so I'm going to leave it here. If you have any challenges, you try to use the principles that I've shown you to come up with the ideas. Everything that I've discussed here in the orange section and the water section here, so the G splash section, try to come up with the same ideas and try to find ways of replicating this. So if you have any challenges, just comment down in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to make a video to give you the follow-up results as well, if you're interested in that. So with this, I'm going to leave it at this, and I wish you a great day. I'll speak to you in the next tutorial. Bye.